many of us together for this conference. Today we have over 650 attendees. This is yet another new record for SCG. It includes foundations and corporate members, family philanthropists, it includes government grant makers, philanthropic consultants, and a number of friends and partners of SCG in our new, broader tent. Since 2013, we've nearly tripled in size to include more than 325 members, representing thousands of voices from across our field. You can see our full roster of SCG members, new and old, in our beautiful event program. You'll also find lists of our invaluable conference advisors and partners, our generous operating grant funders, our wonderful staff, and our very impressive board of directors. I want to thank all of you who go the extra mile day in and day out and provide such essential contributions to our growing SCG community. Speaking of going the extra mile, let's acknowledge our generous sponsors who are now appearing on the screens behind me. Our presenting sponsors, our gold sponsors, our silver, bronze, and donor sponsors. I thank you from the bottom of my heart because we literally couldn't put on a conference of this size and scope without your support. I want to throw in a quick thank you to the Dodgers Foundations because there are some very super hats on the table. Go Dodgers. So as recently as 5 years ago, by the way, I had never heard of Southern California grant makers. No, seriously. And looking back, I sure wish that I had. After all, I had been a long-time corporate executive, and though I managed our philanthropy budget for a time, I realized that it was always done largely in isolation. I can't say that our giving was terribly strategic. In fact, for the most part, it was transactional. But that's fairly typical for those who work in their own worlds. And I believe the power of SCG is its ability to move us from isolation to intersection. That's where we can think and act beyond our own specific causes to find the overlaps and benefits of working together. It's both thinking about where our resources might be placed and how those resources can be better utilized to achieve even greater value. Over the past year, the SCG spirit of inclusion has led us to some very exciting places. After last year's conference, if you were with us, many of you felt the call to consider incorporating an equity lens in your grant making. And yet there was still a need for much greater clarity towards achieving that elusive goal. So we set out to tackle that together. We reached out to learn from those of you in our membership and also our wider national network who were taking a lead on this. We became more intentional about threading equity conversations into our programming through a number of our topic areas. And then, of course, there was the election, which dramatically changed the federal government's stance on many of the issues we all work on. November 8th did more than jolt the country. It began to drive us towards a broader view of SCG's role in supporting philanthropy, especially in the wake of these potentially seismic shifts in national policy. However, these shifts serve to solidify our resolve. Throughout this year of great change, SCG has been the place where we can come together to ask key questions like, what's happening now? And what can we, as grant makers, do about it? What can we expect next? Well, there's clearly no easy answers to those questions, but here's what we know for sure. The work of philanthropy is rooted in serving and strengthening community. Beyond the politics of left or right, we can be more inclusive by learning from each other and from the people we serve, and we can be more courageous in speaking their truths. By the way, it's no coincidence our public policy conference this spring sold out for the very first time, and I'm proud to say that SCG has built up a very formidable public policy practice over this past year. Many of you have also stepped forward in making your voices heard. on key issues shaping our sector and society, some for the very first time. Clearly, a wave of engagement and collaboration is sweeping across philanthropy. Earlier this year, we officially launched Philanthropy California, a joint initiative with our friends at Northern California Grantmakers and San Diego Grantmakers, and a number of their folks are here with us today. Together across the state, we're working on initiatives, on joint programs, and on policies where our members have shared interests and concerns. It's an exciting alliance that bridges both geographic and organizational boundaries. And that forward momentum just couldn't be more timely. Everywhere we look, our field is confronted by urgent calls to action. How can any of us possibly respond to all these countless challenges on our own? How can we make the most of all our assets, including our grant making and our reach and influence, on behalf of those voices who aren't as easily heard? Well, we can only succeed if we work together as a community and across sectors. So I believe the work we're doing here today at this conference is crucial. Today, tomorrow, and in the years to come, this is where SCG will continue to broaden our focus on the strategies and the cross-sector partnerships and the fundamental tools and skills each of us needs to ultimately solve these challenges, and by looking beneath the surface to the roots of the inequities that drive them. So I can't wait to see what the courage, creativity, and commitment of the SCG community can lead us. We're just beginning this journey together, and I know we can get there together because of you, our members. Thank you, everyone. I now want to welcome to the stage, once again, our phenomenal board chair, Bea Solis. She will lead us through a very brief SCG members meeting, and I urge you to stay tuned because there's a couple new board members joining the SCG board.
All right, good afternoon. This is the fun part. And first of all, I want to thank you, Chris. I feel really privileged to be board chair at this time and to be working with such an amazing staff at Southern California Grantmakers. I would like to acknowledge them. So if you could please stand up, because for one, you have really elevated the conversation. Year after year, you've come together, you listen to the community, you listen to the membership, you listen to what's going on across the country and the field, and you bring it home. You bring it home here to share with all of us. So please, you're an inspiration, not only to me, but to many of us. So please give a round of applause to SCG staff. As we move into our brief members meeting, so I promise it will be brief, Chris, I also want to say that, Chris, just once again, I appreciate your trust and I appreciate your ability to listen, to be open, to be brave, and to lead us. So I also want to, if we can give a round of applause for Chris Essel. Now, to acknowledge my colleagues in crime, so I think a slide needs to go up. This is really to also acknowledge board members who have taken precious time to be part of this. And as many of you know, as we do our due diligence with any of the nonprofits that we fund or any other organization, we look at the board and the composition of the board and how important that board is to helping set the tone, help support staff, and help move the needle. So one, I'd like to just acknowledge our current board members. And so now we have 3 board members who are stepping down this year at the end of their term. So I would love for all of us to hold applause until the end. One is Jeff Glassman from the Wallace Foundation, David Porges of the Grant Thornton, and Victoria Rogers of the Rose Hills Foundation. So if you can please share with me an applause for their support. We know they're not leaving us, so they can't run away. We know where they are, and we will definitely bring them back for service here at SCG. And now I am pleased to announce that our nominations committee has put forward the following current board members to serve another 2-year term: Kim Belshea, Cara Esposito, Nikki Irvine, Mary Ellen Kuhlman, Joe Lamada, Steve Nissen, Tara Roth, Belen Vargas, Jonathan Lorenzo Yorba, and myself. So thank you all for your continued willingness to lead. Our nominations committee has also put forward 2 outstanding candidates for election to the 2018 SCG Board of Directors. The following representatives will serve 2-year terms: Adrian Wittenberger, Executive Director of the S. Mark Taper Foundation, and Marcia Bonner, Director of Programs, Community Grant Making, and Special Initiatives at the Annenberg Foundation. The SCG Board of Directors has approved this list of nominees and current board members to be presented to the full membership today. Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I have a second? Second. All right, all those in favor say aye. Any members opposed? All right, welcome Adrian and Marcia. And I would love if our SCG board members can please rise so we can also congratulate them. Jonathan, Nikki, come on, you know who you are. And lastly, I'd like to say for myself that it's an honor to be board chair of such an amazing organization, because this is the time for change. This is the time to be bold. This is the time to be really pushing the envelope, and it's so much fun to be a partner with everyone on the board. So I really want to send an appreciation to all of you for staking a claim to kind of move forward and move this agenda. So with that, we officially conclude the members' meeting. Yay, I told you it was going to be short. So now let's continue with the celebration.